I was going to go for Annie for going first and giving a good introduction. It's really nice because I didn't know what Annie was going to present, so I didn't know how much overlap there could or might be. As it turns out, there won't be too much, so this should be, still relevant and entertaining and all good. So this is a talk about developing Quip live apps, specifically where we're going to talk about how you might make use of Lightning design, and as well we're going to talk about how a specific live app that uses the Einstein analytics platform. The goals here is that you learn about Quip and live apps, which now you have some understanding there, so that shouldn't be much. We'll talk a little bit about distribution. I'm kind of going to breeze through that, and then we'll talk about Lightning design and Einstein. So in the agenda, I want to make sure that everyone understands Quip a little bit. If you don't understand the value proposition or why Quip and or why live apps, I think this will be important. So in particular, Quip really was, you go back 6 years ago. Quip was started just about 6 years ago, and the problem space was that we looked at what people were doing at work and how they were getting things done. And the process was, okay, write an email, send an attachment, and then you get a reply with a new attachment, and then you forward it to someone, and then you have a new attachment. And at the end of the day, you look back and you're like, I don't know if I have the right version. Where's the file live? I put something on disk. I don't know where it is. And then you end up later confused, irritated, and you don't even know who's seen the thing you built. So does that sound familiar to the email workflow? I mean, I still end up using email, and it's incredibly frustrating. But it's really resilient, and it works really well in some ways. So it's hard to get rid of. But Quip was meant to be a collaboration platform where the idea was to take this, basically the compose window of an email and consider it a canvas where this was a living document. This is a place that would live kind of I don't know if you remember Google Wave, but I think that Quip kind of inherited some of the ideas from Google Wave and really went for it from that perspective. And so, Quip is integrated, meaning it's integrated with other products you use. All of those products should be able to find a home somewhere in Quip, where live apps is relevant to this. It's collaborative. Quip was designed as a tool for collaboration, first and foremost. It's not really a publishing platform in spite of the fact that it looks like Word, where you might make a doc. But that's not its purpose. That space is just a canvas onto which you do work. You might drop mentions. Those mentions of a person or of a date are much more powerful than just representing something that's like a structured data. They actually send notifications and bring people together. So Quip is always trying to build features to bring teams together. And that's really the kicker about Quip. It could be a really good to-do app like Evernote, but we don't really care about the single user use case. It's really all about teams and productivity. So in the sense, though, Quip offers this mobile desktop and web environment, which you're used to seeing sort of on your screen or on your phone, but really it's a platform. And that's where it starts to look a little bit more like Salesforce, and it starts to make sense why Salesforce acquired Quip. As a platform, it has a lot of things you expect on the administrator side. There's features to limit and control access, to look at search and discovery. At a deeper level, there's APIs. You've seen some things about how live apps work. There's also an automation API to enable you to make a REST request to get the contents of a document. There's all sorts of use cases here around e-discovery, indexing, providing other search platforms on top of it. And the Salesforce API, of course, can talk with Quip. So these are ways to make users happy, but also make admins happy and IT customers happy, because they expect security, they expect the same level of compliance that they get from Salesforce, and yet we want a product that users actually love. Quip has spent way more of its energy in making a product users love than perhaps some of the more enterprise level things, and I think that's really part of its resilience. It is a product that users love in companies. So that's Quip and the background there. And so what's a live app? This is a little bit redundant, except that it has a demo of the Einstein app in here. You saw before Annie gave a presentation here, but you insert a live app. It's this thing where you can mention some tool. Here we're going to insert the Einstein Analytics live app, and I apologize for the screen resolution. I will show another demo that should be better. But this embeds a dashboard picker. Yeah, it does look really terrible here. But basically, this dashboard picker uses an API to get the list of dashboards, and then this is using Lightning out to render a dashboard. You notice this is live, though. This isn't just an image of the dashboard. This is interactive inside of Quip. And so that's a pretty important feature of Quip and live apps, and this is the live of live apps. But the purpose of embedding it here is that you see the comment icon here. This is a collaborative space now to talk about this dashboard. It's not just a place for you to consume the dashboard. That dashboard exists in Analytics Studio. You could send a link to it today. But what's missing when you get to Analytics Studio? Like questions. What if you want to ask questions about this dashboard or otherwise communicate about its presentation? That's what Quip is really all about, is to talk about the content on the canvas. I see hands, so I'll go ahead and say, you should feel free to interrupt me because I can talk infinitely.
What do you call this unit that you have added this live app to?
It's a document. In Quip terms, we call it a document. I keep using the word canvas because I don't really think it's a document the way a document might traditionally work. It's a document, though. Quip has a few primitives: the document, the spreadsheet, slides.
Okay, so in terms of using Quip, if I were a project manager or a team member responsible for some aspect of the project, I would create a Quip document to meet my needs. I would add on, basically share it with the people on my team. That becomes a live workspace for everybody to do that.
Exactly.
Okay. Is everybody equal on that, or am I the...
Everybody's equal.
Okay.
Everybody's equal.
Okay. And that does not live on my... It's browser-based?
It lives in the cloud, but it also lives on your machine in terms of how it's cached locally, so that it works offline.
Okay. Well, it's cached on everybody who's part of that document?
Yes, everyone who views it. When you view a document, we save it to a local database, and then writes happen to that database, and the network does the conflict resolution.
When I'm creating this, or when I'm updating it, or when I'm reading comments that other people have added, I'm in a browser?
You could be in a browser. You could be in a native app, too, if you're on a Mac or a Windows machine. You could be on your phone, in which case you're on a native app.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, just a question regarding the comments. Are you attaching like a snapshot? Because you said that document is dynamic. So that means if we connect right now, we have the adoption goal, which is around 47%. If we connect one day after, it could be 48 or 40, or we don't know. And the question could be completely irrelevant based on the data you see.
Yeah, that's true.
So are you making like a snapshot so you can actually connect the comment of the question to state of the...
You could do that. This doesn't do that. And part of that is because this is built with Lightning out. We don't have like a caching layer for these. It's always just live. But if that were really a concern and you wanted to be like, oh, why is this number 46? That would be a meaningful comment, and then tomorrow it would be irrelevant. That's true. Yeah. We don't create snapshots because we can't actually create snapshots of Lightning out components. But for data and for versioned data, that's pretty straightforward and easy to do.
In terms of creating documents, what are the ways of organizing that so that it's not just one long scrolling thing? I mean, are there tabs, are there pages, are there ways of...
Yeah. In Quip, you could have multiple tabs. I mean, a long scrolling document is often a realistic thing, but it's more often that you have multiple documents, maybe in a folder or with tags or something, so that you have different ways of interacting with people across the thing. Like in Quip, you might have a folder that's engineering, and you might have a project folder that is live apps, and you might have the live apps project plan as one document, and the live apps bug list that's another document. They wouldn't be the same document. It would be annoying, and it's so easy to create documents that that's what happens.
Does it inherit Salesforce data visibility?
Does it?
Data visibility.
Does it provide Salesforce data visibility?
No, does it inherit the Salesforce data visibility? Let's say I add that dashboard, but he doesn't have visibility of that dashboard in Salesforce.
Currently, for the Einstein Analytics app, it wouldn't work for him if he doesn't have visibility, which is, I think, an unfortunate effect. Like, actually, I think that's bad. But for the Einstein Analytics app, that's somewhat, it's a little contentious, so we don't cache it because we can't, because it uses Lightning out. But there are other products within Salesforce that make use of live apps that do cache their data in Quip. For instance, the Einstein Discovery team is working on a way to embed their stories into Quip documents so that, if I then embed a story into a Quip document, I can share it with you, and you don't have to have access to Einstein Discovery to see that document and to see that story. And I think that's really important because in the end, if I want to share something with you, there's so many ways to get around that. It's really about whether you could write to this data source that's more important. And again, Quip's about collaboration, and so we will always try to err on the side of making things visible to everyone. And we trust that you're not intentionally trying to sabotage yourself by sending sensitive information to somebody you shouldn't. So that's live apps. We use the App Exchange to distribute live apps. The major partners that have built live apps are all available in the App Exchange. You saw Lucidchart, Altify, TaskRaid, Draw.io, Jira, basically any other service that hosts a bunch of data that wants visibility into Quip can build a live app that is hosted on the App Exchange. And most recently, there's a Box live app there. So I don't know if you use Box or perhaps Dropbox, but both of them have built seamless live apps that do make use of the data store and caching so that you could communicate and collaborate around, say, contents, marketing assets in a folder, or a project plan that happens to be stored in Dropbox, but you're using Quip to do your collaboration. So that's the App Exchange. So what does it look like for an admin of Quip? They would go to the App Exchange, click the very familiar Get It Now button. They're brought back into Quip where they can see here, this part's kind of important. We let you know as an admin if this live app connects to external data sources, so you can decide if you think that's okay for your organization, or if you suddenly realize this live app doesn't work because you have network filtering on for all of your customers or in your Wi-Fi network. Like, it would be obvious why something might or might not work, what you might need to whitelist. We put that all up front so admins can feel safe about apps before they install them. And then once they've installed them, they show up here in this Apps Explorer, which Annie demoed earlier, and now they're available to everyone in your organization. So building apps. Since this is a developer meetup, I think this is the part that's kind of more fun. You've seen how to basically go through the process of building and setting up a live app. That Create Quip App flow is totally modeled on the Create React App flow, and really we're just taking advantage of the developer ecosystem and know-how around how React apps work. But you can build a Quip live app in any platform where you can compile down to JavaScript. So we have apps that are done with Angular, apps done in TypeScript, apps done in jQuery. It really doesn't matter. You could do it in anything that you can write out a JavaScript file to. So again, we did this because Quip doesn't actually believe we'll solve all the problems that a customer might have. We know that there's data sources we'll never understand in Quip. Like, we have a Slack integration. We can build that because we understand how Slack works and there's a public API. But you might have an inventory system. You might be Boeing and you have a parts system and you want to connect all of these things into Quip. Quip doesn't want to be in the business of having to understand that stuff. So this is where you see the parallel with Salesforce. Building a developer ecosystem enables third parties and companies to build their own workflow solutions there. So that's what the app platform's for. Now, one problem I want to get into is that writing UI is hard, right? Like, you saw Annie. Annie built an entire form and a really cool set of buttons and things, but this is hard, and sometimes that's an impediment to developers. So one of the things we've tried to focus on here is to enable the Salesforce Lightning Design System to work in live apps. So this wasn't a great deal of work, but it was some amount of work, and it would have been irritating if you were trying to do it yourself. And so I'm going to just show you what that looks like. Are you familiar with the Lightning Design System, everyone? Okay, so there's a guy named Stephen James who is the React implementation of the Lightning Design System's maintainer on GitHub, and he helped me make a few changes that make the Lightning Design System work well in Quip live apps. But this is what it looks like, right? There's all sorts of components you can build and make use of from directly in a live app now, where you don't have to write any UI code. So if you wanted a really particular, something that was consistent looking with what users might expect from Salesforce. This is a really forward-looking way to do that. What does it look like to do this? It's pretty straightforward. This top line is the NPM dependencies for using the Salesforce design system and the React implementation of it. And then there's a file when you run that create Quip app command that creates the directory structure you saw. One of those files is this thing webpack config. You kind of have to hack that webpack config file just a little bit to make use of Lightning Design System, but it's pretty straightforward. In there, there's one set of modifications. You import the Lightning Design CSS file, one file that has the Quip modifications for it. And then now you can make use of all of the things you might expect, like all of the sprite files that come with Lightning Design are available in the Quip Live Apps world. Buttons and components are pulled in using the common JS module pattern. So it's really easy to get off the ground running and build an app that looks like a Salesforce app. I'm certain if we'd had this done before Annie built the Toastmasters app, she probably would have just used this stuff. But it would have been, trust me, it would have been irritating for you to figure it out, I think. And so why did we do this? One of the reasons we did it is that Quip really wants to partner with other Salesforce clouds and other products within Salesforce to bring content from Salesforce domains or Salesforce clouds into Quip for collaboration. The Einstein Analytics Live app is just one example of this, but is this a tool you all familiar with? Have you seen the dashboards from Einstein Analytics before? Is this familiar? Okay. So Einstein Analytics is a platform for collecting data and then providing visualizations of that data. They make use of a pretty complicated charting library to write these dashboards. And I think one of the challenges is, and it's the case with Google Analytics as well, you have a small set of your company that has access to this tool, and then no one sees the dashboards. Right? Like in an Einstein Analytics case, there's some set of people in your company that have access to Analytics Studio, but most of the people in the company don't. And so they're never going to go to a URL where they can see this dashboard embedded in Analytics Studio. But you might have a company that uses Quip, and you want to put all the dashboards in a set of slides to do a presentation. Today, even within internal Salesforce, when they want to talk about dashboards from Einstein Analytics, what do? They go to Analytics Studio and collect a set of screenshots that they put into Google Slides, and then they go present. And they present static data. And as we all know, nobody really believes in static data anymore. There's no reason to make a presentation to your CEO about sales numbers that's a week old by accident because it was too much of a pain in the butt to go make another screenshot. But that's what we all do. So the idea here was that you could embed dashboards that were live, specifically in slides, because this seems like a really good opportunity for an integration. So what does it look like? There's three kind of steps in the Einstein Analytics app. One is that you need to set up in Salesforce a way for Quip to talk to Salesforce and to Einstein Analytics. And so that looks in Salesforce set up like a set of CSPs. You might have a connected app. You need to enable some of this. In fact, this actually is no longer relevant. We make use of a global connected app now. But you do have to set up a set of things for CSP cores and the analytics whitelist. Though I expect over time we'll be able to remove that barrier too, and it will just work in all Salesforce orgs. But when you get down to it, a live app has the capability of doing an OAuth. I think Annie was talking about there's a way that any live app can do OAuth back to another data source. And so inside the Quip dev console, there's a configuration for what it looks like to make an Oauth2 config. This looks pretty similar if you've done this in any Google app or any Dropbox app or a Facebook app. They all have a way for you to paste in a callback URL, put in a client ID and a client secret, and now you can make a connection to some third-party service, get the OAuth flow, and pull in data from there. And so that's what this does. It initially, after you've done the connection and done OAuth, we get a dashboard picker. This is a REST call to Wave dashboards to get all the Wave dashboards for your organization. And so we present them in the Salesforce card control here. So this looks familiar and actually looks almost identical to what you see in Analytics Studio. In terms of code, this is pretty basic. There's just a request back to the Wave Dashboards API to get the list of dashboards, and then you can feed that list of dashboards to Salesforce's Lightning design component just to render a data table. So this is pretty sweet for 10 lines of code, and now you've got an interface to your dashboards. The dashboard itself is where the meat lies. So all of the Wave dashboards are Lightning Out enabled, which means you could embed them into an intranet or some other third-party hosted service. But in particular, now you can embed them like this into a Quip Live app. So the Quip Live app basically is an iframe on the canvas that is a Quip doc. When we call this function, it actually creates another iframe that loads the Lightning Out component and renders the Wave dashboard. So if you have a dashboard ID and an access token, pretty much everything else just works. So it's probably, I think it is a powerful way to think about what you could do in Quip with anything that might work in Salesforce today that uses Lightning Out, or if you have another product that works with Lightning Out that you want to embed in Quip, it should be pretty trivial in terms of being very little code to get there. So that's pretty much it. That's the bulk of my presentation, and I thank you.